So what we're going to do, we're just going to say briefly, what's Kai? We're going to introduce the awesome Martin. He's going to talk about his project, lots of questions and answers, and then we're going to look at Kai's Clan Smart Guide and some sensor and data reading. Okay.
So I excuse the subtitles. I think
we were in Greece last night, Bruce. We travelled a long way from last night.
Yeah. So where was I? So I, like I said, I started creating Kai's Clan about 3 years ago after my son was going into learn coding in school. And I went to a few open days in the school where they were showing off robotics and coding. And I was really frustrated because I was born a geek. You know, I love technology. I pulled apart all my mother's electronics, and I got in trouble a lot. So that was a lot of learning for me. So even though my mother hated it, I enjoyed it, and I learned a lot about electronics. Then I got into coding, ZX Spectrums and IBM, and all the old stuff. When I was going to the classroom, I just wanted more for my son and also other children out there, because technology has evolved. It's no longer a future thing. Technology will be a future thing every single day, but automation, AI, I mean, just yesterday we were looking at the AI, the new GT3 AI that can automatically, you give it some subjects and it'll write a story for you. You can give it and it'll write a thesis for you. I mean, it's just crazy how AI has evolved, and we need to get kids exposed to this. And that's why we put Kai's Clan together. I just wanted the kids to have a lot of confidence to be able to do very complicated things that are normally complicated, but do them very easily. So they have the confidence, and then they can really go out there and be creators and not consumers.
And where did the name come from? What is Kai?
Well, in New Zealand, Kai is food, and food is knowledge. So let's get a beast today.
So we created this really fat toolbox, our STEM toolbox. So we've got robot avatars, AR, VR, Internet of Things. So you can see 3 stars. That's what we're going to play around with today. And also some AI blocks. Right, now what we're going to do, we're going to go over to Martin. So I know he's got lots of titles, but I just thought I'm going to call him an EdTech guru. So Martin is actually, I love what he's always said, he's a serial digital tinkerer and a thinkerer. I really got my tongue twisted around that one. So Martin has been at a lot of international conferences, regular speaking there. He writes extensively in the education domain. He, from K-12, tertiary lecturer in initial teacher education, he's designed, evaluated and taught courses in maths, computing, design and technology and ICT, both in New South Wales and also in South Australia. So he is a very, very, we're very fortunate to have him. He's also the immediate past president of the Australian Council for Computers in Education. So I'm very, very privileged to have him. So what we're going to do, we're going to cross over to Martin. And Martin, you've got the stage.
Well, thank you so much, Ronelle. You made me feel tired with that introduction, all those things. So welcome to those. I see Manal there. Manal, I believe that you're in Jordan. Is that correct?
Hello, Martin.
And you're in Jordan. Are you in Amman?
Yes, I'm from Jordan.
Okay, good. I visited your country a few years back. It was very lovely. We had a wonderful time in Wadi Rum, Wadi Musa and Petra. It was really wonderful. And Amman, yes. I must add. Yeah.
Yes,
okay, so I'm going to share my I'm going to share my screen, and what I've been involved with over the past 3 years is working with a number of schools in Australia, helping them with the digital technologies curriculum. And this is a new curriculum in Australia. It was new about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's rather similar to the New Zealand digital technologies curriculum. But like Bruce, I've been very interested in the whole idea of technology, but not for technology's sake. I'm interested in it in the way it can amplify what can normally be done by kids. And I think Bruce's introduction was really good in that regard. A friend of mine in the United States calls technology a cognitive assistant, or if you like, a prosthesis, an intellectual prosthesis, which allows you to do things which you wouldn't normally be able to do in the same way as a prosthetic device does. So what you're seeing on the screen there at the moment is a couple of kids at one of the schools that I'm working with. These are kids from a tiny little school, about 24 kids. And this is the problem that they came up with. Often when I visit a school, rather than going in and just teaching them straight off with, this is how digital technologies work, I want to get a couple of kids to wander around the school with me and show me the school. And then as we do that, I ask them questions about what's happening there, what's happening here, where are the problems. And the problems are, the kids identified immediately was that people forget to water our gardens. So they spend the whole year basically getting gardens prepared, planted, irrigation to go in, all sorts of things. And then everyone goes away in the Christmas holidays and everything dies, which isn't particularly useful. And this happens at a lot of schools. I'm not too sure what the situation is in Jordan, but in Australia and New Zealand, the idea of having a kitchen garden in a school is very popular. So let's move on. That's the premise, if you like. So what I did with those kids is to sit them down and say, okay, is this the real question that we need to ask? How do I make sure plants don't die over Christmas? Because you may notice that there's a tank in the top right-hand corner of that screen. This school doesn't have town water. It's reliant on the water that it can capture off the roof of the various school buildings from rain. And last year was pretty disastrous in Australia. It was very, very dry. We had an enormous drought. So how do we make sure the plants don't die over Christmas? So basically just brainstorming with the kids and trying to work out what sorts of things they thought were important in the solution of this problem. And you'll see a link to the Australian curriculum down the bottom there, because I've used this slide before with Australian people. So you can see some stuff like who can water reliably, I want our plants to thrive. And out of this, you can dig some ways of constructing a better question, which we'll look at in a minute, rather than just making sure the plants don't die. So when we move into, or you may recognise that empathy is the first phase of design thinking, if you're into that. And empathy can also be called discovery, where you're trying to discover what the issues are in relation to a problem so that you really understand the problem and that can therefore supply a good solution. The systems thinking thing is trying to look at what are all the different parts of that system. And a lot of people will go straight to, well, you've got a tap and you've got a pipe and you've got blah, blah, blah. But people and plants and soil types and the temperature and all those things are part of the system which goes together to make up a garden and the problem that's associated with it. So we redefined our question. So rather than saying, how do I make sure the plants don't die over Christmas, what the kids were really asking, which took a little while to dig out, is how do I manage water use for best plant growth? So there's not much point in saying we're going to water the gardens over Christmas if there's no water to water with. So how do I manage water use is a much better way of talking about this. So another part of the design thinking is a thing called ideation, which is an American word. It means coming up with ideas. So you throw a whole bunch of ideas at the problem and see which ones you think might be worthwhile working at. And again, our kids came up with lots and lots of different ideas. But you'll notice that get reliable people watching plants for wilting, measuring humidity and temperature, and put water holding stuff in the soil all still require a human intervention. And that's what the kids decided was something that they needed to avoid. So we came up with, we need to automate this process. So once we've come up to automate the process, we had to think about, well, how are we going to do that? And this is our prototype. Get a computer thingy to measure the soil and turn the water on when it gets low. And that's what we came up with the kids. So you'll notice that so far we haven't done anything with digital technology at all. But we are still doing digital technology, because digital technology is to provide a solution. You really need to understand what the nature of the problem is and do some thinking about it before you rush straight in and start coding. If you rush straight in and start coding, you can guarantee it's going to fail because you don't understand the problem that you're dealing with. Excuse me. So again, you can see a link to the Australian curriculum down there. This is what we're trying to do: plan, create, communicate ideas, and do that collaboratively, et cetera, et cetera. So this took quite some time because the kids needed a large number of schools. And here you can see that the kids are working with microbits as their teacher on the left-hand side there, helping the kid understand how to go about programming the microbit, which is very simple, uses block coding. You'll see this in a little while. And the students on the right are working with the light sensor to try to work out how they can determine the amount of light that there is out there. And you'll see why that's important in a minute. So we did a lot of fooling about trying to set up problems that the kids could solve, which would then be related to the final solution that we came up with in trying to solve our problem. So here the kids are trying to measure low light, and the LEDs on the microbit also measure how much light there is, as well as giving out light. And they could report back. You'll see the one on the front there says 4. So the amount of light that was being received is 4. 4 watts doesn't really matter. It's a 4. And if you've got a 10, you've got more light. So that's basically what we were getting at here. And I should mention that this is a multi-age group of students from year 3 through to year 6. And sometimes it was year 2 through to year 6. Now, this is another school where we're trying to do the same thing. And we've moved on now to trying to measure how much water there is in the soil. So this little boy is in year 2, and he has coded the microbit to give a number depending upon how much water there is in the soil, because those 2 screws that are poked into the soil there and you put electricity across them, and the wetter the soil is, the more electricity will get through. That's probably enough of an explanation for the kids at this level. I'm not too sure how well a movie is going to work on this. It depends on our bandwidth, but let's have a look and see what happens. So this is him doing the experiment.
What value did you get? What value did you get?
Are you guys hearing the audio here?
It's very quiet, the audio.
Get off me!
Right. He suddenly got attacked by ants. So you can see that what they're doing, the audio is not all that important really, but what you can see that's happening there is that they are getting a number, and they've tested a whole bunch of different soils to try and get an idea of what that number is. And one of the reasons why the audio isn't particularly good is you can guarantee that with any school, as soon as you start recording audio, someone will start a leaf blower or a mower in the background, which makes life difficult. So these little kids, the boy on the right there is in year 6, the little girl to the left is in year 5, and as I said, the other little fellow is in year 2. So they've now established themselves what a number is that corresponds to soil that they think requires water. We then did a lot more digging around. I got them to take that soil and rub it between their hands and then look at their hands afterwards, and there was clay on their hands. And I said, well, maybe that soil isn't as wet, as dry as you think it is. Otherwise, the clay wouldn't have stuck to your hands. And then we looked at how plants get water out of soil and realised that they are very, very good at doing it. So then we had to do a whole bunch of other stuff about looking where the root zone was on the plant, how far down the roots were, so how long would it take water to get down into that area, when is the best time to water the soil, do you water it as soon as it's dry, or do you hang off for a bit? This little girl here is describing the code that we used, and I'll let this go, and you may be able to pick this up. I think I'll just put the microphone close to the speaker.
Read pin is less than 700, turn on the pump, and if it is more than 700, turn off the pump.
Okay, so she understands clearly the business here. It took a little while to, what's the difference between analog and digital, because most kids understand that as being a watch or a clock. And they get that eventually. It wasn't really a great problem. And they decided that the number that represented dry soil was 700. So clearly, if it's less than that, then it's too dry. You turn the pump on, etc. You heard the little girl say that. So this was our problem as we further expanded it. We don't have much water, so we should water the garden only when the plants need it. But there are some other things. We've got a horticulturist come in and say to us, when should we water these plants? And they said, well, don't water in the middle of the day because all the water evaporates and the plants have shut down pretty much. If it's a really hot day, they're not going to use it anyway. And don't water in the evening because if it's been a hot day, then you're going to encourage mold growth and you don't want that to happen. So there's a lot of learning about what was going on here, and we have to water enough so that the water actually gets to the roots. So there are a lot of beautiful science and mathematics in this, in trying to work out when we should water and how long do we have to wait, etc. So in plain English, we came up with an algorithm that says that the water checker should run all the time. And then we turned that into structured English, and as you'll see in a minute, we turned that into code. So this is what we want. We want the water to run all the time. And if the soil is dry and it's dark, in other words, it's evening time, which is if the reading on pin 0 is less than 700 and the light level is less than 100, they decided that was dark, wait for 4 hours. And the microbit measures time in milliseconds. So that was an interesting exercise, trying to convert 4 hours into milliseconds. Then water the garden. Okay, so we need to turn on pin 2 or whatever pin we had the thing connected to, wait for an hour and see how things are then, because the water's been running for an hour and they reckoned that they needed at least that amount of time for the water to percolate through the soil. We did a test with that by having a soil profile and putting some water on top and timing how long it took to get down. So again, we turned that into milliseconds. Otherwise, turn the tap off and turn off pin 2. You're done. So that was then turned into code. And you can see the code there. They changed their mind, I think, from 700 to 400. And then off they went. And you can see how that works there. So notice that we went from plain English through to structured English, and then we went to code. We didn't go straight to code. So a lot of people think that the code is the algorithm, and it's not. The algorithm is in the plain English or in the structured English to give an idea about what's happening. And that was a very successful exercise. Whoops, I don't need that fella. We can go back one. So that business of turning the what it is that we actually want to do into structured English is an interesting exercise from a literacy perspective as well. So the teacher saw that not only were we doing coding, but we're also doing some critical and creative thinking. We were trying to put ourselves in the shoes or the roots of other people or other plants. And we were also trying to do some mathematics. There's some simple arithmetic there, but also setting up the science of how long the thing's going to take to percolate, etc. And the best result was that the kids came back from holidays at the beginning of this year, and the raised garden bed that had this system on it had plants flourishing. They still had water in the tank, and the rest of the plants had died. So they were over the moon. They had designed this. We had a solar cell set up, recharging a battery, and that also gave us USB 5 volts to run the microbit, all stuck in a fishing box that I bought from a local supermarket for $20 and bolted to the wall. Excuse me. So that insects and spiders and various other things couldn't get to the device. So there you go. That's me. That's it. I guess the takeouts from that is that all of that presentation had probably less than 10% talking about coding. A lot of it was about the critical and creative thinking. But the critical and creative thinking can't happen unless the coding is there somewhere and the understanding of the system. And for a kid in year 4 to be able to design a system that would automatically water their garden, taking into account where they take the measurement in the soil, how long does the soil take for the water take to percolate through it, where is the root zone of the plant. There's a lot of very complex thinking and understanding that needs to come through there. The kids in year 4 can do it. Whereas a lot of people would say, well, you can't do that with kids until year 8, but you can. Because this allows that intellectual prosthesis allows you to do that. All right, so I'll turn off my screen share now, and I'll leave the screen share on actually in case Manal or anyone else would like to go back to any particular slide.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you. Even I learned some stuff in here, so thank you very much.
Martin, I really loved the problem solving. I loved the calibration, because calibration is always a tricky one to get through to the kids, like when the soil was dry, what was the reading? Because that's a very important part. Like the calibration again was with the light sensor. And I loved that as well. They were sitting under the table there, you could see that, and they were calibrating, their darkness values. So that was great to see that. What water pump did you use in the end?
In the end, we didn't actually use a water pump. We used a solenoid. We got a plumber to install a solenoid on a pipeline so that it automatically turned the tap on. It was just a 12-volt solenoid. And the kids got that. They didn't have any problem with it. It's just an electric tap. That's not a problem. But I'm really glad you brought up that issue of calibration. I think that's really important. I've had a history of teaching a lot of different subjects, computing, design and technology, science, mathematics, geography, taught a lot of those things because I've taught in small schools and you get to teach lots of things. And the thing that really gets me is that in science, in schools, it's rare for kids to actually do science. They learn about science, but it's rare that they do science. Mm-hmm. And I can only think of one thing in the whole science curriculum in Australia, and that's titration in chemistry in year 11, where calibration is done. And yet scientists do that every day. They have to calibrate their instruments to know exactly what the meaning of the number or whatever it is, where the needle is, what that actually means. And that calibration thing is just so important. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really good. So Ahmed has joined us as well, which is really awesome. So any questions from anybody out there? Otherwise, put it in the chat and we can ask.
I've still got another question for Martin. So the interesting thing was about watering at night. So, I always thought, and I'm not a green fingers, but my wife is, and, she waters in the evening, when she comes home. So really interesting. So we should be watering in the morning instead, especially on holidays.
Yeah, I think New Zealand's a different weather situation, so it may be different in your country. You guys are in Auckland, aren't you? And you've got quite a maritime environment. Whereas, Yeah, well, you've already got the humidity, so you're probably not adding humidity. Whereas this little school is out on what's called the Breezer Plain in New South Wales. It's about, I suppose, 5 hours drive to the coast. I can't think of many places in New Zealand that are 5 hours drive from the coast, but this one is 5 hours drive from the coast, and it's very, very dry. And if they water in the evening, then the atmosphere becomes humid and molds that would not normally grow can now grow.
Right.
That was the advice of the horticulturalist, and I think having that horticulturalist in was really helpful because the kids got a better idea, and the horticulturist said, "Wow, I didn't know you could do that," and she was just blown away with the fact that the kids were considering things at this level. And the science that they're doing is real science. No,
that's great.
I just think we should do a competition next year. Let's create some, little projects around the world and see how we can, grow some smart gardens. I think that will be an awesome project, and see what happens across the world.
I also love, the problem solving that you went through, because we when we developing, we go through a very similar process of finding the problem, and then can you find a solution, and go through the whole SWOT analysis of it.
Yeah, and that's something that we don't do enough of in schools. We tell kids this is the right answer. There's only one right answer, and there's only one way to get it. And we concentrate on the answers, whereas the really interesting thing and the really important thing is to learn how to analyse problems. If you look at most school textbooks, if they're still using those, and you look at the problems which the kids are being asked to solve, they're given a specific algorithm to solve that problem. They're also given all of the information that they need to solve that problem, and none of the information that they don't need to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Now, I can't think of any problem in my life that was worth solving where that situation existed.
Yeah.
I don't know what I need to know. I need to find that out. I need to examine the problem to work that out. So that's where I also like this side of it.
I think it's like giving the students a funnel and saying to them, okay, you got to put water in the bottle, find the solution. And you've already given them the answer, and they just have to figure out they put the funnel in the bottle, kind of thing.
That's right. And it becomes, why am I doing this? What's the point? There's a link to a tutorial for that, by the way, going through in more detail. And I'm just looking at where the chat. Oh, there's the chat there. There's an address that I'm put into the chat where there's a movie all about that at that address. And if you also go to youtube.com/Martin Levins, there's a playlist in there on smart gardens. There's also a playlist on data analysis and all sorts of other stuff that to do with computing, but there's a series of videos up there that describe what we did at those two schools.
Okay, and what we'll do is we'll copy these links that you've provided, and we'll also, once we publish the video as well, we'll put those in the video descriptions as well. So for anyone who's coming in late, we'll send out a recording soon. But without further ado, let's pretty much what Martin has discussed. Let's just simulate that with Kai's clan. So as you can see in the top video here, we've got a little garden and some water and some different types of sensors. So we can go through that and do that. So let me share my screen. So I'm on another computer, so you'll have to bear with me. Chat messages there.
Sorry about the sound. Yeah, we'll try and speak directly.
Is it my sound? Is it me that's speaking? I need to speak up sometimes.
Yeah, I think the mic is sitting in front of Renelle, Bruce, and if you move away, the mic seems to have a very narrow focus.
Yeah.
Almost like a shotgun.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll just speak up loudly. So yes, Ahmed, definitely. I think creating a bit of a project out there, maths and programming and science. I think it will be a really good challenge. So we will think about something, and we'll launch it with Kai's Clan. But here we go, Bruce. Let's see if we can save. You can see we've got our little veggie garden growing slowly. It's looking actually quite good, but I'm going away this weekend and I'm really worried that I'm going to lose my plants. So, Bruce, can you help if I can?
I'm going to try. Okay, so here's the components. Here's the components that we've got today, just in front of me over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to set this up in Kai's Clan to water the pot plant. So let's get right to it. So some of the elements we've got is a humidity sensor, temperature humidity sensor. I don't know if we need that. Do we need to water a plant when it's very humid? Do plants get water out of, the air? The light sensor, Martin's already spoken about, so we're going to use that. So let's put that in, and we can do some very basic calibrations with that. Okay.
So what we're going to do, we're just going to turn the computer around, and if the audio is a problem, just let us know, and then Bruce will speak.
Okay, so here we go. What I've got here is I've got the little Kai robot, and I've taken out the circuit board of one of the robots. So you can see here. So this is what lives inside the robot, and it's got a rechargeable battery and can run wirelessly. I've also got the light sensor we spoke about. I've got a temperature sensor, I've got a moisture sensor, and I've also got a water pump. So this is a submersible water pump. I've got some green mineral juice here for the plant, just so we can see the water flowing through. I've also got an empty jug to calibrate, just to check the amount of water we're pumping in. We don't want to flood the little garden here, so we want to just test it. So while we're doing that, I'm going to get Renelle to start adding sensors over. So just move that window over, Renelle. You're going to have to pin it. So if you go to the bottom, Okay, so the first thing, let's add the water pump onto the Kai bit board. So here we go. This is onto robot 10. So all we do is we plug that into the robot. It's kind of, the Kai bit board is like a BBC microbit. And here you can see Renelle is adding the water pump to robot 10. And you hear that beep. So that's all provisioned. So that's ready to go. So let's get that. Can you run the water pump code, Renelle? Can you just, let's turn this pump on. So I've got my water here. And last time I did this, I kind of flooded the area. So this water pump has got a built-in relay, which is over here. And this is how it ships from Kai's Clan in the kit. It's all ready to go. You just got to plug it in. So we want to go to bits, action, and then go to our water pump. And what is that saying? Add, no, action. No, just do action, just run the code. What have you selected? The first yellow. Sorry, I've dropped Renelle into the deep end here. That's robot 10. So if you turn that on, we want to see if we get any water into here, Ronel. So run that. Okay. What's going on? There we go. Okay, so you can see, wow, that was 2 seconds and we got quite a lot of water in there. Now that's going to definitely flood our plant. So in Kai's Clan, we can actually control how much power we give it. Currently, it's set to 50% for 2 seconds. So let me pour this back in here and let's try. And this is part of the calibration process. Let's try half of that for 1 second. And click run. Wait for it. There we go. So that's looking a little bit better. So we're not maximizing that flow. We just want a trickle in there. So now we've kind of calibrated our water pump. Let's move on to the next item on the list of calibrations. Now I've got another robot over there, and we're going to add a light sensor. Can you pass me that robot, please, Ronel? So this is Kai robot number 3. And we're going to see Ronel how to add a light sensor. So this is a green sensor. What we call a green sensor. It's a digital sensor, and we just plug it into the back of the robot. Very easy. And now this is giving off a light. Just plug it in. So green light sensor. If you type in light at the top, you should be able to search for it. There we go. And click save. Okay, and now if we go to the map view and click on robot 3, we should see a graph on the bottom. So currently we're getting 96, 97%. So if you can see on the bottom right-hand side, we're getting 97. So if I cover this, you'll see that percentage go down. So even though I've got my thumb over this, it's quite bright. So we're going to simulate that. We're going to say the calibration value is, say, under 60%, it's nighttime. Right? So you can kind of start seeing what Martin was talking about, and what I'm doing is going through and just doing a calibration on all our sensors. Okay, so we've done the light sensor, we've done the water pump. Next up is our soil moisture sensor. This is very similar to 2 nails in the ground, exactly what Martin was doing. And this is just going to measure the conductivity between the 2 points. So we need to calibrate this as well. I'm just going to grab another robot. So I've got robot number 2 here. Now, like I said, you can take the circuit boards out and put it into a lunchbox and seal it and provide a 5-volt supply, exactly what Martin was doing. So I plug the moisture sensor into robot 2. And let's go back to the map view. And now let's look at robot 2 and see what the moisture value is. Now you can see the moisture value is reading at 0% on the right-hand side, if Ronel can highlight the area. And we're just going to put it into the water, and we can immediately see a reading coming through, right? So with full water, we're getting a reading of about 34%, 33%. If I take it out, it's 0. If I put it into the plant, I don't want to kill the roots. There's a lot of roots in this. Okay, so you can see that this plant is also very waterlogged already. So it's let's say it's sitting at about 27%. this unfortunately, this got rained on last night in New Zealand. We get a lot of rain. So, normally I wouldn't water this plant, but for the experiment, we're gonna do that. So let's say our calibration value is 20% dry, or New Zealand dry. So we've got, okay, so now we've got all the elements that we need to do pretty much what Martin was doing, or the students were doing. So we're going to need some if statements here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if it's dark, so let's do it in English first, go through the steps. If it's dark, and if maybe we could also use the temperature sensor. You could say, well, if the temperature was quite cold or very hot, we don't want to water because it will just get evaporated. So we could actually include temperature into it. But so what have we got here? If it's dark, if it's less than, what was that value? Renal, we had, if you click on, okay, I think it was 60%. So if it's 60%, now in Kai's Clan, we also have the time of day. So we could also use the current time and to say if it's between, say, midnight and 4 a.m., making sure it's still dark to confirm that, and then checking the moisture level, then we can water that plant. So let's see how Renal's doing here. So if robot 3, which has got the light sensor, is less than 60, greater than 60, then turn on the water pump. Okay, and what about the moisture? So we need another if statement underneath that, nested underneath. So inside where the yellow one is, above that, yep. And then if the moisture So just as a background, Renal had never done coding before. So we've really dropped her in the deep end here. She's only started coding in the last year. So very, very well done, Renal. Has anyone got any questions up to now? Martin?
No, not at this stage. I think it's that's going really well. I'd probably just add that the biggest cause of plant deaths in Australia is overwatering.
Oh wow!
So your allusion there to saturated plants is a really good one.
Cool. Okay, so Renal, are you done there? Okay, why don't you add a buzzer if a particular condition is met? So if the first if statement is met, can you add a buzzer on one of the robots, so on board? Because it's nice to get a notification right at the top, second line of code, yeah. And change the song, please, not Indiana Jones. Because that's the default song all the time, I just can't deal with it anymore. I've got this mental thing about Indiana Jones music now. Any robot you like. And then another buzzer for when the water pump is activated. Now, Renal's doing, she should at the beginning of when the water pump is. Yeah, the start, there you go. Now, what we should really be doing, we're quite naughty, is putting in comments in each line to tell us what is actually, what that line of code does. So normally that's what we would encourage the students to do to be able to do that. Okay, so if Renal clicks on each of the sensors, let's see what they are. I'm going to put my thumb over the light sensor so we can see the light is now sitting at 55. The moisture, I've got to put the moisture sensor in. Where did that go? It's here. Okay, so I'm going to put the moisture sensor in a bit. And that's set up. Now we're going to put the water in. I'll just drag that over there. Poor old plant is going to get saturated. So we got that set up. We're not using the temperature sensor, so we're using the light sensor. Right, I'm ready, Renelle. I'm simulating darkness. Right, so the code is running and it got activated by the light sensor and it got activated by the water pump. So it's pumping water. So you've got a bit of a bug in your code there. The light sensor, it's activating because of the light sensor. Yeah, you're flooding the poor plant. Because it's not stopping because you told just click run again. I'm just going to put a plug on this. Otherwise we're going to flood everything. Right, stop the code. Right, okay. But you kind of get the idea of what we're trying to do. Doing this live is very difficult. I'm telling Renelle what to do. So it's a bit of a challenge, but well done, Renelle. Now, the nice thing is if Renelle clicks on the Excel sheet, we can actually go through and see, no, the Excel sheet, Renelle, sorry. And then we can actually analyze all the data. So we can see what the light sensor was doing. We can see what, you can just move that over. So if we go to, say, robot 3 with the light sensor. Robot 3, you're on robot 2, the 4th sheet. Yeah. Okay, so here we've got the light sensor. So you can see we could then easily do a graph, or the students could easily do a graph and actually monitor how the light was going through the day. Because one thing is, yes, we've calibrated the robots, but we can also do a calibration for the whole day. Maybe we could actually calibrate not just once off, but actually calibrate the soil over a 24-hour period and then analyze and see how it's doing. So then we can improve on our logarithms. So I hope you found that useful. And I'll just go back to my chair and we can stop sharing and discuss about this. But actually, one more thing, Renelle, put a challenge out there for you. Let's represent this data inside the virtual world. Right, so putting Renelle on the spot. So what we've got is the Kai's virtual viewer here. And just behind me over here, we've got the mat. So what we're going to do is we're going to change. I'm going to get her to code the environment to make it night or day, to change the color of the environment. I mean, we could use these real sensors to actually simulate a plant growing. We could do it. So in the virtual world, we can have those things happening. So let's dump all that code. And so you need to go to teacher mode and use change the sun color. And if you click onto robot number, if you click onto robot number 1, on the mat here, in the virtual view, is it right there on the path? Okay, and just get a horizon view. Yeah, go all the way down. Yeah, cool. Right. Okay, so Renelle, what we need is an if statement to say if the light is less than 70%, make it dark, else make it light. And I think that's a nice thing about Kai's Clan is that we can actually represent our data in the virtual world. So if you're doing a humidity sensor, you could fly a hot air balloon all sorts of data can be represented there. So if, what have you got? If robot 3's light sensor, robot 3 is greater than 60%, is less than 60%, then make it dark here. So change that sun color and put that sun color in the do. And make it black. And then else just copy the sun color and make it white. Okay, and run that code. So let's see, it works. So now if I put my thumb over the light sensor, there we go, it's gone dark. Well done, Ronald. Pat yourself on the back. You take it off. So yeah, it's very hard to get it to go dark. But yeah, so that's you know, that's a very quick kind of thing on Kai's Clan and how you can use it in the classroom.
Right, we're just going to turn the computer around, stop sharing. Wow, okay, I love that. I love learning on the spot, and I usually throw Bruce in those situations, and today he got me back. So, but I love it. So any questions, please ask. Otherwise, you can see the versatility. You know, you can now go and do augmented reality, you can do virtual reality, we can use AI blocks. So there's so much more that we can do. But today it was all about gardens. I trust if my plant dries up, we'll be able to find a solution. Any questions?
I haven't got any questions. I just really love the flexibility of this, so that with, you know, you can take that thing out of the robot and use that to do your measurements. And then when you're ready, you can, or when you want to do something else, you can plug that into the robot and it becomes a robot. So, you know, what's lovely about this and what appeals to me about this is a couple of things. One is it's accessible at a variety of different levels. So I don't see this as something that's going to be used in week 3 of term 2 and then put in a cupboard for the balance of the year. I don't see this as something that's going to be used for year 5 only and can't be used anywhere else. I love the idea that it's very simple to get data out of it. And making that then available for future analysis. And that might be just doing a simple chart of what the data is all about. But having those data available in that numeric form also gives kids up to, you know, say 15 or 16-year-old to be able to do a cluster plot and work out what a regression analysis might be to see if they can develop a relationship between an independent and dependent variable, something which it took me until I think it was third year university before I did anything like that. Kids in year 9 can now access, 15-year-old kids can do that because it's made possible for them. So the fact that this will extend over a variety of ages, the fact that your reference to calibration, Bruce, I think is really, really good. And the availability to get those data out so that it's not just a light glowing or a needle moving, but you're getting hard data out, I think is really important. And then you add the virtual and augmented reality on top of that. Man, it's pretty good.
Well, let's come back to and summarize. So just on the screen, Bruce will just share this. So obviously here.
So here's, basically some data we collected earlier, and we're monitoring the light and the soil moisture during a graph period. This is just over the sensing period is just over a short time, But yeah, I mean, just highlighting the different rows in the spreadsheet gave us this data. On the top right here, we get the real-time data. So yeah, and we've got a lesson plan for this as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to go quickly back. I'm sorry, I'm going backwards here. So obviously, there's our sensors. It works with microbit as well. So Kai's Clan works with microbit. So there's the lesson plan within Kai's Clan. There's obviously the lesson plan for the teacher as well as the student. It shows some sample code, what they can do, and you can break that up. And then you can see here is the data collection or the visualization of the data. And then what Bruce was talking about, creating the graphs and everything. So there's a lot that we can do. So I think you guys know that we've got the two products. So it's the classroom kit and the starter kit. We've got our different mats. So that's where the virtual worlds are sitting on.
Yeah, and those kits that you saw just now, those do include a bunch of sensors as well.
That's right. So here's a special offer. Will run during our webinars. If you order anything, any of our products, you will get a free Create mat. And this offer stands till the 30th of December. We've done the demo. Any questions and answers? We can do that. Otherwise, we can stop share. We just need to find the little. Fantastic. So I'm from Jordan and we will teach Kai's Clan robotics ASAP. Awesome. Yes, Ahmed, definitely. We need to touch base and see how we can help you as well. So thank you very much. Doug, I see you've joined it as well. You've done some of our webinars. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And tell Martin, we can't thank you enough. You know, somebody with your expertise, we really, really value your input, and hopefully we can work on some projects between New Zealand and Australia as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that you guys haven't mentioned, the fact that kids can be in different countries. They can be in different classrooms, different states, different towns, different countries, probably different planets.
We do some more stuff.
Hey, we could get some schools here in New Zealand to control the watering of your garden, and your kids could control the watering of our garden, and we could have a challenge and see who's. Yeah, but no sabotage is allowed. And see who does well. Yeah, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, you could call that the. There's got to be some word that we can use instead of Bledisloe, isn't it?
No. We don't bring up rugby. It's a very, very sensitive point. We'll just move on for the moment. All right. Thank you very much. We went a little bit over. There will be a recording of this webinar. We'll post it. If you've missed anything, we repeat this again tonight, New Zealand, 7 p.m. time, or just go to your Zoom links and you'll see there's another one. So please spread the word. Please go Twitter and just share your experiences. And thank you very much.
And from me and Kai, and to all of you guys, a big Kai 5. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Martin.